31st of January 2010. It was a dark night, it had been raining. I was driving back to Gold Coast. Suddenly my car just felt like I was driving it on butter. It was just sliding everywhere.
I was 3 car lengths behind. I think I was just shocked, really, to actually see it all unfold in front of me.
I remember my car going up this embankment. It came back down, and then the nose hit the road. And then it just started rolling.
Rolled back onto the road, onto its wheels, and then veered into the concrete barrier.
It was sickening. I could hear the metal, I could hear the glass shattering, and everything was suddenly silent again.
Just kept yelling, "Help, can you help me, please help me." So I sat there sort of holding his head. He told me his name was Dinesh and that he was in 3rd year training to be a doctor.
I touched my leg and it was just numb. I couldn't feel it. I realized in the split second that I've injured my spinal cord and I was paralyzed. How was I going to finish medical school? Yeah, I was just terrified. I've always thought that helping people and making a difference in their lives is what I want to do and what I want to spend my life doing. But funnily enough, I need the same myself, which is quite ironic, really.
Turn on the lights?
Yes.
So every morning, Dinesh needs about 3 hours to get ready and get out the door. So if he's supposed to go around at 7:30, we get up at 4:30 in the morning. Jensen's here.
Great. My mum and one of my guys that help me out come, and they help me out of bed.
Are you feeling right? Yeah.
They help me into the shower. It can be quite a rigmarole. There are, other embarrassing bits and pieces that need to happen.
When I look back on what Dinesh has achieved over the last few years, I feel it's absolutely phenomenal.
Okay, let's see what's going on today.
Dinesh totally challenged us all, I think. He was ready to shine. He was ready to prove something. And for me as an educator, there's nothing more exciting than supporting students that really want to succeed.
Dinesh was born in Sri Lanka, in Kandy.
Sri Lanka is seen as a tropical paradise, but for many decades it was at war.
A truck laden with explosives rammed into the central bank building.
Luckily, we were able to migrate to Australia, so we left everything behind and we just migrated in 1994.
Coming to Australia was just a whole new world. It was a huge contrast to Sri Lanka at the time because you could really just freely roam around. When I was going through high school, I took some flying lessons, which I loved, and thought I'd join the Air Force. Then my mum had a chat to me and I ended up going to law school. I found it interesting, but my heart didn't feel a sense of purpose. I wanted to do something where I could help people. And I thought, wow, medicine would be a great way to do this. Once I decided that I wanted to be a doctor, that was it. It changed my life, and that's all I pursued from that point. I loved it from day one. I loved the people, I loved the science, I loved every single thing.
Dinesh was very popular. He was popular with the girls. I would definitely describe Dinesh as being flirtatious, especially throughout his early time in medical school.
He's the best and the brightest. I had no question that this was somebody who was going to do very well. He was going to have a brilliant clinical career from the get-go.
I was loving life. I'd wake up every day, look outside my window, and I'd just be so thankful. And I guess I thought one day I would have just had a family, got married, had kids, all the normal stuff.
I was actually on call at home. I received a notification that there'd been a major trauma on the Gateway motorway. The patient was trapped in the vehicle. It had left the highway and had suffered significant damage.
They wanted to pull him through the sunroof, but there wasn't enough room, so they ended up getting the jaws of life out.
He couldn't feel his legs. He was barely able to move his arms, and it was quite obvious from the very beginning that he had symptoms of a spinal cord lesion, which was obviously very disturbing.
I remember being in an ambulance, and then I look up and I see a familiar face. It was a doctor that had given us a lecture just a very short time before this happened about trauma. And I said, "Oh my God, I remember you lectured us."
I knew from the outset that this was a kindred spirit. He was a young medical student starting his career, and here I am treating him with his spinal cord injury. I thought his chances of finishing medical school and becoming a doctor were zero.
I can't remember when someone first mentioned the word quadriplegic. It felt like my body had been cut off from below my chest. I could not feel a thing. The doctors would round every morning. Ironically, this is what I've been doing, as a medical student. They'd be at the bedside and talk about the patient. And I just hated it so much because, I suddenly went from being this guy to, bed 10. It's a really tough lesson in what it was like to be a patient. It was a very difficult thing to adjust to, being in a wheelchair. I didn't want to be seen as a cripple.
During the time after his accident, there was a girl that he was in a relationship with. They became really close. She was there at his bedside a lot.
We dated earlier on in medical school. She didn't care that I was quadriplegic from a spinal cord injury. She'd just sit on my lap and we'd ride around the wheelchair. And it was really nice. It was special. And I really cared about her. But I've also found it hard not being able to do the things that I'd normally do with her.
He saw himself as becoming the person that was being cared for, and he saw his girlfriend becoming his carer, and that wasn't a relationship he wanted. It wasn't a relationship he thought was healthy.
I just slowly pushed her away, and I just shut myself off, and we just eventually, I know it's one of the most difficult things in the world for her, but we just eventually went our separate ways.
That's it, good there.
When he was in hospital, when he was in the rehab unit, we'd say that we didn't know what he'd do with his life, but medical school was over for him. I didn't think he'd get back to medical school. No one did.
I was the Dean of Medicine. I was the one who had to point out he had to be realistic, and I was not very optimistic about him ever being able to come back into the program just because of the condition he was in at that point.
1, 2.
The task of being a doctor involves a lot of physical skills that clearly someone who's lost the use of their legs and the use of their hands would find extremely difficult to do.
How's the body been feeling?
Yeah, good. The car accident caused an injury where my C6 vertebra was dislocated over the C7, which essentially means that I broke my neck. I can't move any of my fingers or anything below my chest. Ultimately, I just decided that I had to pull out of medical school.
Do you want to take this one?
Yeah. Mum and I decided to go to Sri Lanka for a little while, spending a bit of time recuperating.
This is too heavy though.
I don't think the accident really helped my parents' marriage. A part of it was probably because Mum was so focused on helping me and looking after me.
I had to move away from home, and I was doing what I'm doing with Dinesh all the time, so the marriage did not survive.
Okay. The dream of being a doctor was always in my head. Always wanted to finish it. But I had all these fears about being able to do it.
I knew his dream and his story. I took on the role to encourage him or nag him to come back because I felt it would be important for him, and I felt that he would be a very good doctor. There's no question that you're going to have a lot of naysayers. Over 2014, we discussed the practicalities of him coming back to the medical school.
He's a very persistent man. So I talked to Mum and she's like, all right, well, let's just do it. I need to do this. I want to do this. I will regret it till the day I die if I don't.
It's go time.
I didn't know if it could be done.
Get your cardio on.
Get your cardio.
Go, keep going.
Keep it going. Good work.
So Dinesh, to be able to complete the course, had to show us he was ready to be a safe, competent intern. So patient safety is a crucial factor that can't be compromised.
It's been awesome storms lately.
The first day back in medical school was really scary. It had been 5 years since I left.
And he knew that when he came back, a lot of eyes would be watching him.
All right, everyone clear?
Yep.
He was definitely trying to disprove the skeptics. He came back with something to prove, and I think he did that with gusto.
Okay.
He had to do some adaptations to be able to do the CPR and basic life support. But the feedback that we were getting constantly from every single clinical rotation was that he was one of the best students that they've had going through.
And then deliver the shock. Fantastic. And then once that's done, start compressions again.
Straight back on the chest, absolutely right.
Dinesh amazed us all. He amazed us by his perseverance, by his commitment, and proved to us that passion is the primary ingredient required to succeed.
The hard work was well worth it on his graduation day.
Dinesh Palipana.
That was the best day in my life. And yeah, I couldn't believe that we did it, we made it. We were so happy. And finally he became Dr. Palipana after all that drama.
Probably one of the best days of my life in terms of my medical career.
Congratulations.
If you see someone who's had to face that kind of difficulty, yet come out with such a positive attitude and a positive result at the end of the day, it's been a very uplifting thing for everyone in the school.
They're useful in EDs because that's what all the data is for things like burns and stuff.
And then I had a real roller coaster ride. Everyone put in their applications. Shortly afterwards, everyone got a job. Me, I was still in limbo.
He was the only medical intern without a job. So Queensland Health refused to give him a job.
When he was not given a job, I was outraged. To me, this was, there's no other word for this. This is discrimination.
I'd like to be able to use this, though. It just feels more proper.
There's no reason why he cannot perform that job, and there's no reason why he should not be offered an internship like every other graduate.
It seemed crazy that he could do so well in medical school and potentially not have an internship as a consequence.
I was really frustrated. And I think I was getting pretty angry, to be honest.
Inevitably, when somebody has a unique disability that hasn't been through a process previously, it's going to take some time to assess. That application doesn't take place until all the regulation and the regulatory bodies have in fact given approval. And as soon as we were informed that Dinesh was available for us, we grabbed him.
I got a call on the Friday before the intern started on Monday, saying that I've been offered a job. I had to run out and get some work clothes and rush and figure out how I'm going to start my new job.
With Susan being away today, I'll ring public health and get them to chase that up because that shouldn't be a barrier for her going. Is the son still happy for her to go on Friday?
For the last 11 months, I've been an intern at the Gold Coast Hospital. It's been tiring and it's been challenging, but almost every day I'm reminded why I chose this career. How you feeling? Yeah, I'm still getting a couple of fevers though, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not breathless?
No.
No. Have you been walking around much?
Yeah, yep. Feel a bit sick in stomach still.
Yeah.
Dinesh does have restrictions on his registration. If he's in the emergency department and there's a need for a resuscitation, then Dinesh knows that he cannot be the only doctor there because he doesn't have the capability of putting hands on the patient.
So listen to your heart.
Yep.
When I examine someone, I have sensation on one half of my hand. So this part of my hand I can feel, and this part I can't. It's numb. I can just put my thumb there. I can't move my fingers around, but I can just place things in the right spot to examine them, and that's been working pretty well. Just get you to take some deep breaths. I've had to find ways to do things just using the natural grip of my hand and my knuckles as well, and my wrists. I've just found ways to do different things with what I have. Mild pedal edema halfway to the tibial crest.
Dinesh is a great doctor, not in spite of the wheelchair, but because of the wheelchair.
All right. Great.
From a patient perspective, they think it's pretty cool to meet a doctor that's had similar and often greater challenges than them and overcome them.
So we'll have a chat to the infectious disease specialist and then we'll get back to you through the day, okay?
Awesome.
We'll try to get you home soon.
Awesome, thank you.
Right.
See you, mate. Yeah, well, I think the doctor being a quadriplegic is a great thing. I think it's amazing that people can still do something like that with something that's happened to them, and they can still do anything.
Knock, knock. Hey, Jane. How are you? I'm Dinesh. I'm one of the doctors.
So I saw him yesterday going backwards and forwards past my room here, and I realised he was a quadriplegic, and I thought, what an incredible man.
And how you been today?
Good, very good.
And what are things like at home? Do you live by yourself? Or
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I like to be busy.
Yeah.
I like it perfect.
Okay.
I think he'll be a fantastic doctor.
One of the people that I got in touch with early was this guy called Dr. Harry Eamon in Melbourne.
Looks like we've got a busy one.
As far as I know, Harry's the only other doctor that graduated with quadriplegia in Australia.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks so much.
See you.
Bye-bye.
My situation is similar to Dinesh. because my life changed when I was in medical school. I didn't have a spinal cord injury. I had a rarer illness called Guillain-Barré syndrome. And this has left me with weakness in my 4 limbs, but I was able to finish medical school and I'm practicing successfully as a doctor.
We created Doctors with Disabilities Australia because the current climate for anyone with a disability wanting to practice or study medicine can be quite challenging, and that's something that we're passionate about changing.
I think potentially good doctors are being kept out. Dinesh is a really shining example of what you can do if you've got the drive, the emotional intelligence and the fortitude to pursue a career in medicine.
It's been 7 years since I saw Chris Bailey, the guy who helped me at the crash. I can't wait to meet him.
After the crash, I tried to find out any news that I could of Dinesh. A lot of phone calls just to be told the same story, that they can't give out personal information.
Dad.
6 years after the accident, he ended up calling me.
Wow, it took us 7 years to meet. How you doing, man? Bring it in. Hey, man. Woo. Man.
I have wanted to see him ever since that day.
Whew. Man, wow. Yeah, last time I saw you, it wasn't in the greatest way.
No, it wasn't. Definitely not. So it's good to see you now.
Oh, man, it's so good to see you. Yeah, finally.
Yeah, that's it. Finally. It's happened.
I've heard now he's a doctor now. It gives you butterflies, it gives you goose pimples. It makes you feel really good. We definitely do have a bond. We've touched each other's lives.
Yeah, I was going to say. Exactly, I was thinking that, man.
Now I'm studying at the same university where Dinesh graduated. I look at life very differently now, and I want to reach out and help people with disabilities as well. I'm studying for the Masters in Rehabilitation Counselling now.
Today's ceremony is a celebration of our students' achievements.
My mum is graduating today, which is a really big day. I'm really proud of her. Mum says that what we went through is what inspired her to be a rehabilitation counsellor.
Graduate Certificate in Case Management, Dinesh Palipana.
I think it's great. I think she is really keen to give back to other people that are going through the same journey. I think she'll be amazing at it.
Want a little bit of chili?
Yeah, I love chili.
I think Dinesh's life outside of medicine at the moment revolves around his mum. I think his mother is still his rock, and neither he nor she would dispute that.
Chili because you like it really hot.
So he does worry about how his life will go when his mum's gone, or when his mum's not able to be involved in his care.
Ooh. You ready to eat?
Yeah.
Okay. He needs help with eating and drinking. And I make sure I give him a lot of space. That's quite important for him.
It's a lonely life sometimes. A lot of my friends have got married, they've got children. I have avoided thinking or pursuing any relationships or thinking about marriage. With all the different things that are going on in my life, to pull someone else into it and add that complexity to their life, I don't think it's fair.
I think at the moment he's still a bit reluctant to open himself up to that possibility that there might be someone out there who is willing to take him with his strengths and weaknesses. I'd like to see him be willing to find someone that loves him for him. I've got no doubt that person is out there. He's an amazing guy. He's very clever, very able, despite the physical limitations he currently has.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
I think it's nice to think that there's someone out there for everyone. And yeah, I guess it'd be nice to think that there's someone out there for me.
Oh my God.
He may not even need me if he finds someone to share his life. I would love to see him have a partner and live life. It has to be someone very special and someone very lucky as well.
I don't think I could have done that any better if I'd tried.
It's just really good to be able to get upright and walking again, and it's great that I can do it now, and it'd be awesome to see you up here soon.
I am definitely hopeful that I will walk again someday. The science around spinal cord injury is moving quickly.
Jim will tell you all about the speeds. I'm not sure how. The only weight you're carrying is your own body. It's not the same as walking used to be. Yeah. But the best part is just being like upright. Okay.